All right. So Lisa Tahir, LCSW from New Orleans and Los Angeles. So NOLA Therapy, NOLA, NOLA Therapy. Welcome.
Alex, thank you for having me on the Green Pill. I'm super stoked to be here with you and our audience.
Yeah, thank you. And for those listening, Lisa's got a really incredible background from podcasting to having a patent for a glass blowing device, which helps people in wheelchairs actually blow glass. And we're going to dive into all things that she recommends to her patients, her clients, but also her background, personal, like get behind the mask from having rough, you know, parents divorcing when she was 13, taking care of her two younger siblings, substances, all the way through where she is today.
Yeah,
So let's get started, Lisa. I mean, what are you excited about nowadays in the health world, in your world? What are you seeing in 2023?
that's a good question, Alex. I'm excited about reaching for more joy and satisfaction in my life and really inspiring and helping others to do the same. I think there's such a belief in our narrative around gritting it out, around hard work. Nothing wrong with either of those. However, I think there's some more pleasant ways to experience success. And I'm all about allowing myself to receive the benefits of what I've cultivated in my mind, in my life, as I look back, and to harvest those benefits and really helping people to look at creating their lives versus living by default and just coping with what comes up.
Mm. So to those people out there who feel successful in their careers, but maybe in their personal lives, like you said, they're on a standard template, or they just feel a little bit stuck. When someone like that comes to you, what's the initial download as a patient, as a client, and then where do you, what are a few different paths you go down when someone's in that standard space, but they want to create more?
Yeah, I think that's actually a really exciting place for a person to be. And if you're in that spot, listening or watching, to know that whatever you've used to create your personal success, professional success, you can extrapolate and put in your personal life. I think we think of those two things as separate. I know that I did
Hmm.
for a while.
Hmm.
And you hear a lot, Alex. People, I have clients tell me all the time, giving it all in work, and they come home
Hmm.
and are kind of like they're worse selves, like just kind of edgy and irritated and angry, and their loved ones kind of experience that version of themselves. And I encourage you, if you're in that spot, whatever helps you be successful professionally, what if you were to put those things in your personal life? I've done that. As
Mm.
far as with clients, I tend to be at my best. And what if I spoke to friends and loved ones more from that perspective of myself, like I do with clients, because I'm authentic in both settings? And just what do I have to give up? What do I have to change to have more reserve in my personal life? Because it might
Hmm.
mean that I see less clients, or I change the schedule of how I work with clients. And if you start playing with those things, you're going to start to feel better and like you're really seamless in your professional and personal lives. And I think that's what we want, Alex, to feel like we can really be ourselves in both arenas of our life. What do you think?
I think I think most of us would really like to be ourselves in both arenas and just be smooth, copacetic,
Mhm.
easygoing, or maybe intense, whatever our dynamic is
Yeah.
with ourselves and others. But I think putting on the mask for work is something people struggle with a lot and feel like they need to do. Then they put on the mask socially, if they go to
Right.
functions. I mean, hopefully not, right? Some people, don't, and that's great. And then in their relationships, sometimes there's challenging times, and you need to hold back, and maybe not, or people feel that they need to hold back and maybe not be themselves. So I think what you're saying should resonate a lot. I mean, it seems like an easier go of it. What kind of hurdles do people face when you present them with such a vision of reality? Because I guess modern American society and maybe just Western society and Eastern society is hard work, hard work, hard work. And I know you had a recent book endorsed by the Dalai Lama, so you're no stranger to Eastern philosophy. So how
Right.
do you translate it to the modern American person who's grown up thinking you got to grind? Um,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about that. Yeah.
Alex, something you just said just kind of was like highlighted for me going back a few moments ago when you talked about the mask we put on
Mhm.
in our personal lives and our social lives. And that really resonated because for me that's been the most exhausting place
Mm.
when I feel like I'm not being authentic. And if I'm not, why am I thinking, why am I believing I need to put on that mask socially? And it drew me to look at, who am I spending my time with? What about this situation, this group, these people, this person causes me to feel like I can't really be myself? And if that's really true for me, then I found that's not the group or person for me to spend so much time in. And as I've allowed and just watch kind of who comes to me, who's texting, who's calling, who's emailing, and what is the quality of that conversation, of those messages. And typically it's been things that feel really good. So I've kind of realigned with spending more time there with those people in those settings. And I notice I've kind of relaxed around, I can also be myself and I don't feel like I'm in competition, because I think competition is something that really hurts us. And social media, another area I think where it's hard not to compare oneself. I think it'd be unrealistic to think we're never going to go on social media and not compare ourselves.
Mhm.
Yet, if we catch that, when we catch that sooner and realize, okay, I'm really not deriving pleasure from this, I'm feeling more
Mm.
of a sense of competition, of not enoughness, to realign our relationship with social media. And I again have started to feel like I'm on there a bit too much and I'm a little
Mhm.
tired as a result. So this
Mhm.
morning I set an intention that I don't want to check social media every day. And I want to be more in my daily life because that felt good when I tried that for a month recently. And
Mhm.
so I think you can make these kind of experiments with yourself to try. And I feel like you're probably big on that, being a health coach, to try
Mhm.
something new. I think 30 days, if you can do that for yourself, is such a good time frame because it really allows the old pattern to start to fall away and the new one to emerge. But if 30 days feels like too big of a chunk of time, try 1 week, try
1
2
week.
weeks. Yeah, to really allow yourself to do some different things, some new things. And I feel like that addresses the question in a way that you asked me. Do you feel like it
Mhm.
is?
Yeah, how to take down the mask, how to people who have hurdles with that hard work, competitive culture that, a lot of us grew up in, and I'm no stranger to. I love to work hard, and you touched on social. You touched on basically a few tools that you offer people, right, to
Yeah.
take down the mask, and one is finding the intuition around communication and who. Um,
Yeah.
Another is finding intuition about like social media. Does this feel good? And
Yeah.
then you gave some tactics, which was a 30-day challenge, which I like because it's kind of specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's
Yes,
realistic, and it's time bound. Right? It's smart.
it is.
Um,
Can I
and you
jump
have
in
some
about,
background there. Yeah, jump in.
when you just said, because again, as you say things, it's triggering my mind
Hmm.
around working hard, around, so I've always been one to be about my goals, and I love
Okay.
having goals and I love achieving them. And so with goals and accomplishing them, of course there's going to be effort, there's going to be things that you do. And I've approached that from a place of what really lights me up, what goal do I feel the most excited about. And I think being an entrepreneur, there's typically several goals that we have going on. And instead of feeling like, because I used to think, Alex, I need to address every goal every day. And that's
Mm,
completely exhausting and not even necessary. That each day of all these goals, these things I have in the works, in the world, in the universe, like
hmm.
what
Hmm.
is my energy calling me to today? And then I let myself go down that rabbit hole of, if you want to
Mm,
call it work. But for me, I think it's when we're really inspired and we have desire, it doesn't feel like work. Has it been like that for
hmm.
you? It feels like I'm just lit up, whatever it takes. If you're like, for me, writing my book for 3.5 years, there was a lot
Hmm.
of work there. There was a lot of intention and effort, but I fell in this flow with it because I saw the outcome. I saw people being helped. I saw myself changing. I saw interviews like this. I saw the things of my effort right now is going to help, and I'm going to feel so proud. And just, if you can really feel from that place of the accomplishment and that why, the pleasure, the joy, the pride, that that's going to help you stay in the details that sometimes aren't so fun but are necessary.
Hmm.
How do you
Hmm.
approach that?
I think same in the sense where I set a vision and work backwards, and there are sometimes the details. I think I'm a little different right now because I am still really focused on just the grind. I enjoy the grind, and yet I realize it's not serving me. So this conversation is serving as a nice
Yeah,
reflection for me to say, I guess I'd love to hear what made the how yeah, more about how you shifted from grind mindset to intuitive, do what feels good mindset.
right.
Is it something about scarcity? I mean, that's something that comes up for me a lot, and I
It
wonder,
has for
what
me
that's
is
about.
Yeah, it
Hmm.
has for me in the past. And again, I think we have these templates that we take away from our upbringing. In my
Hmm.
family, which you mentioned, there
Hmm.
was a lot of emotional discord as I grew up.
Hmm.
And I realized that my central nervous system was
Hmm.
affected. I didn't know that at the time, but
Hmm.
you know this is operating in your life when you have that fear that the other shoe's going to drop when things start
Hmm.
going well, and that can kind of reveal there's a pattern of thinking and belief around if things get too good, is the shit going to hit the fan? And that
Hmm.
usually happens when you come from a family where things will be going well, they're going smooth. And if you have a parent who's alcoholic or addicted, inevitably something's going to go wrong, and it's like your sense of security and safety is just pulled out from under you. And I had a lot of those experiences growing up, and I perceived that stability. I couldn't count on stability, but it's
Hmm.
because when we're young, our stability is really provided by our caretakers. And as an
Hmm.
adult, we unknowingly bring into our adult world a central nervous system that's still on that highs and lows, like post traumatic stress disorder kind of mind, where you're always scanning. It's called hypervigilance in the brain.
Hypervigilance.
Yeah, you're
Mhm.
always scanning in the background for your safety where there might be danger. And this creates for you, then when you get to places of peace in your life and success and like achievement, you might even feel like you're bored because you're
Mhm.
mistaking peace and health for boredom, because in your family there was so much chaos. And I had to really realign. The peace I feel is what I've always wanted, and it's not boredom, it's actually the outpouring. It's the end result of doing things well in my life and being about my mental health and my physical health, that I experience so much peace. And you have to really re-educate yourself that this isn't boredom, this is actually calm. And from this calmness, what do I want to do to bring in more joy? If I need some peak experiences, what can I go do to create that kind of endorphin rush that's healthy versus trauma
Mm.
informed? Is that helpful at all?
It is, and I think it would even be helpful to keep getting into some narratives about your own life and subject being green pill, and so how we help the people as health professionals, how we help those around us get healthier because we should be uniquely placed to do so. Um, and maybe you could tell us a bit about you as an early teen, about your family unit, which you shared about, which probably wasn't always the most stable. It sounds like there was period. Did you experience that yourself? Were it periods of stability and then disruption, or what was your childhood
Exactly.
like from that perspective? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, or
So.
like super young. I remember until about 7th grade, I guess 12 years old, feeling things were really going well. My grandparents, my
Hmm.
mom's parents were a big part of our lives, and my
Hmm.
parents were married and seemed to be happy. And sometimes as kids, we don't know everything going on
That's
between
right.
our parents exactly, but we start to feel things. Like I started to
Mm.
feel like something was happening that's different, and my parents started arguing more, and there was certainly a lot of emotional abuse, some physical abuse, and it started to feel like, oh, like this is awful. And my grandparents, fortunately I had my grandparents, and research even shows that however traumatic of a childhood upbringing you came from, if there's one person that you can remember being like someone who believed in you, it's going to help. It's a precursor for your success later in
Oh,
life.
wow.
And I know my grandparents were really that safe place where I could be a kid and eat candy and watch cartoons. And my parents were more about, you go to, my dad is an immigrant from Pakistan, came from
Wow.
complete poverty, a village, no electricity, clothing
Mhm.
sewn from army tents. And so it's a
Wow.
level of like something that I fortunately have never experienced. And it caused him to be really driven and drive us. And yet it was like you could never just kind of take it easy and relax.
Mm.
And so that was like, for me being born in America, it didn't really resonate with the friends I
Mhm.
had and the culture I grew up in. It was like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
just the constant pressure was so much for me, and as well as the emotional abuse and physical abuse. It was just like so much that I turned to friends. Fortunately, I had good friends, but I also turned to addiction really young with alcohol and drugs to just try to mediate my central nervous system being in
Mm.
hypervigilance and feel like I'm not good enough and I'm never doing it right. And again, all these things as a young person, I didn't have the connections I do as an adult, but it all led me into therapy when I was
Okay.
21 because I knew
21.
I needed some skills I didn't have. And that's where I knew, Alex, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. I want to help
Wow.
people heal themselves. It was such a good landing spot with my therapist, who was a social worker. And I started my master's in social work at Tulane University in New Orleans as a result. And I love
Mhm.
what I do. It's like my life makes sense because there were many years. It's like, oh my gosh, why did all that shit happen? And now I
Mm.
know it's because those of us that have been through a lot, we can really offer those silver linings and how our life makes sense in the context of our experience. My book talks about that, the Chiron effect, to really
Chiron
look
effect.
to really look at how your life experience has informed you to be who you are. And though some things might not ever make sense, I don't think abuse ever makes sense, but what do I want to do with this experience that I've gone through? Like, how can I be a light for others? What do you want to start a podcast, start a blog, write a book, do videos on your social media? Like, I think there's always something that wants to emerge from even the worst of
Mm.
situations for us to feel happy and be connected. And my experiences of childhood that were traumatic have helped me connect with more empathy to other human beings and people. And like, I bless it all. I'm grateful for it all because I can't imagine who I'd be without those experiences now. And there's been a lot of
Mhm.
healing in my family. A lot of my family's gone
Yeah,
to
tell us about
therapy.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've addressed their wounds and made amends. And though it doesn't take away what we experienced, it certainly allows us to enjoy our adulthood together and with really
Mhm.
authentic joy and love. And I'm so grateful that I get to have the rest of my parents' lives different, like that we enjoy each other. They come to my house,
Wow.
I cook, and it's like we get to actually have the relationship I wanted as a child and didn't get. I get to have it now. And again, like, that's really reaching for the best because if you're looking for things, you're going to get what you look for. And people say this in
Mm.
so many ways. I'm sure you do too, Alex. Like, if you're looking for the
Mhm.
best, you're going to find it. If you're looking for the worst, you're going to find it. So it's like, what do I want
Mhm.
to see?
Mm. And tell us about your mom, if you don't mind. You shared about your dad, and by the way, similar experience with my parents coming from Ukraine,
Oh,
coming
wow.
here
Wow.
without any money,
Yeah.
rags to riches, the whole deal. So I
Yeah.
hear you, and a lot of what you're saying totally resonates for me, in terms of central nervous system activation, in terms of parents being somewhat hard driving and me not relating because I grew up in a nice neighborhood in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But they were still living, in rags to riches land, even though my dad was making good money. And it was, at night he goes around to the trash cans of our neighbors and picks up some old appliance and tries to fix it, because he wants to
Yeah.
save, and he fixes things around the house himself because he wants to save. But as a result, maybe he's not present in personal lives as much and some other stuff. So it's really cool how you shared about your dad. And there's a lot of kids of immigrants in the US who are listening now. And I wonder, could you tell us a bit about your mom too?
Sure. And I appreciate you sharing that, Alex, about your dad and just like noting the way he immigrated. And I think it's hard, like you meant, like a scarcity mindset. I think that can be really
Hmm.
hard to truly transcend coming from immigrant situations where it's like the
Hmm.
country one came from. It's like beyond our experience of poverty, of even being oppressed. And I think it's hard to just be like, oh, like that's done, because the
Yeah.
memories and the emotions kind of live on. So I think your dad, if he did that, I hope it was fun that he found things to fix. And my dad too
Yeah, he
fixes
did.
things around the
Really?
house. And actually, that's something
Uh-huh.
I love fixing things around my house instead of
Uh-huh.
calling immediately for a repair person. So I think
Mhm.
there's some really great skills that even these
Mhm.
hard experiences teach us. And with my mom, it was a little harder to understand because she grew up in America. She's Irish, and
Mhm.
she had alcoholism, and I didn't
Mhm.
know about that really being such a thing that affected her and affected me as a growing up a child of an alcoholic. And so being a girl, a woman, like I wanted that best friendship with my mom that I saw
Mhm.
other girls, other friends having, and that never was the case. So I had to go through my
Mhm.
own grieving process of like, my mom's not a best friend, she's not who I would go to with my most intimate details about relationships or losses, and like, be held. Like, she's never been
Mhm.
that person. So I've cried my tears about that as often as
Yep.
possible, and I've looked to have other women like that in my life where I can feel vulnerable in that way. And my mom and I are closer now. She's more touchy feely. It's interesting. She's more like, she wants to hug me and kiss me, and it feels a little weird because that
Right.
wasn't the norm growing up. But like, I allow that. Like, I'm just trying to allow, okay, like, mom's change. She's in her later stage in life. Like, I'm gonna,
Mhm.
it's taken a lot of work, honestly, to be able to accept her for who she is. And because I think I expected more of her in some ways than my dad, since she is a woman and a mom. And I feel like a
Mhm.
lot of women listening can probably relate that it's kind of almost like we think we should have this mom as a best friend, and when that doesn't happen, like,
Mhm.
what's wrong? And I
Mhm.
realize I don't think there's anything wrong, she just didn't learn the skills that I put myself in therapy for at 21. Like,
Mhm.
she
Mhm.
just didn't do that. And again, I don't know that there's a why that's adequate, but
Mhm.
since I was left with this, what am I going to do about it? And I knew personal responsibility is key, that it might not be our fault, but when we take responsibility for healing those wounds and those vulnerabilities, that we start to be really empowered, and we shift from feeling as victimized and as wounded into being like, being able to really be strong in spite of this and even because of this.
I hear a lot of that almost immigrant hardworking mentality when it comes to your own emotions, and I certainly relate, having been in therapy since I was maybe 17, I
That's
think
so
17,
cool.
and maybe
Yeah.
a bit earlier. And just really, I mean, I wouldn't say, I don't know if it saved my life, but close. And I hear you really transcending what happened and saying we got to work hard to transcend. I hear a lot of grit almost in your personal
There was like,
self-development.
I wanted it,
Yeah,
so that's why I think,
you
like,
wanted it.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, I wanted it, and it took me, like, I'm gonna turn over every rock. I'm gonna, like,
Yep.
I'm gonna be who I want to be, and I'm that person today. Like, I'm so proud,
Hmm.
and it's really like you learn these skills, like, internally, that nothing can take from you. Like, and just having that
Hmm.
inner strength is so valuable. So that whatever, and now I know I can create my life with more joy and with more ease. I don't think I could do that younger because I had so much to heal. So for those of you listening
Hmm.
that maybe have some things to heal, do that. The sooner you do it, the better you're
Hmm.
going to feel.
Hmm.
And I think the easier things will be that you'll allow them to be.
Hmm.
And if you're in that place where you've had a lot of ease and joy, I'm so happy. Like, rock that out in your life, and just really every day try to find, I look every day for, like, what is good, what is beautiful. If it's a flower, like in California, it's easy. The palm trees, the sunshine. In New Orleans, sometime with all the rain, it's a little harder.
Hmm.
But I look at all the
Hmm.
lushness, all these oak trees that are magnificent. And, so just to really, even if you have to get thinking out of the box, to do that for
Hmm.
yourself. How do you do
And
that,
and so,
Alex?
well, I have my beautiful girlfriend who's been really just a source of joy, and every time I look at her,
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, she's so great,
Yeah.
and Man, you caught me off guard with the question because I had so many for you.
It's okay.
How do I find joy daily? Moving my body,
Mhm.
a lot of gratitude around where I could be. My mom was schizophrenic my whole life. I have other family members, other friends who aren't the healthiest in their body, and maybe that's a competitive mindset. I just feel like I've escaped the jaws of many bad things that could have happened to me.
Yeah.
Just having a schizophrenic parent or a mentally ill parent, as you might relate, it's hard to
Yeah.
self-regulate. And so I was lucky and I had a lot of privilege and resources to get to therapy somehow and to have a roof over my head and have food in my belly and be
Yeah.
pushed to be pushed to go to college or be pushed to educate myself. So I had a lot going for me, but I also had a few things that could have really knocked me out, including lots of drugs and alcohol, and
Sure.
I got real lucky many times. And so I just feel blessed in that sense. I think I'm curious for those folks out there who still feel like they got to do the work. I mean, I guess you're saying to them, go do it. And then the other thing is, and I say that to people too, I'm like, don't bottle it up. Like, you're holding yourself back. Go do the work. Like, stop hiding from it. And that hardcore mindset, I think, helps a lot because sometimes you have
Yeah.
to be that hardcore, especially when you're dealing with your own personal stuff. But then once you've done some of the work, I mean, I'll say I've done a lot of therapy, a lot of self development. I've done, trips and journeys and vacations. And
Yes.
how do you take off the hardcore mindset? Because I think for me, it's really challenging. And maybe I'm just speaking it into existence every time I say it's challenging.
It's
How
a
do you
good
take off that
question.
hardcore mindset
Yeah,
and embody, I'm at peace, I'm okay, I'm there?
it's a really good question, Alex. And what comes to mind who's really helped me is the work of Abraham Hicks. I don't know if you know
Mm,
of Abraham Hicks.
tiny
They're
bit. I've heard, yeah, a few
like
times, but
spiritual,
I don't.
psychological, and Abraham Hicks talks a lot. You can Google, you can reach out Abraham hyphen Hicks, and it's
Okay.
this thought. It's a kind of a how to how to live our lives from a perspective of knowing how loved we are, really shifting our mind from fear to love, which A Course in Miracles talks about as well. And I've been a student of A Course in Miracles in addition to Abraham Hicks. And when we start to really, I think it takes reading, consuming some things that help expand our mind and be able to attach to and connect to something greater than ourselves. And for me, it's this true presence I feel daily of a loving universe, of an energy, of an entity. And even in science, it's spoken about energy. Matter is really vibrating energy, and that unifying energy, that unifying principle that knows me and cares about me. And the more I've spent time in meditation to feel that within my own heart, it's actually not outside of us. We see it reflected in nature and such outside of us, but it's a presence within. And really knowing that everything I need to know is within me and not outsourcing that inner knowing, like
Mm-hmm.
insourcing it, my empowerment, I empowerment. And as
Mm-hmm.
I've done those exercises and practices and studied those teachings, it's helped me to be more kind of like self driven versus needing so much from the outside. And I've always been competitive, but with me, I
Mm-hmm.
did 3 half Ironman triathlons, and
Wow.
I wasn't really
Wow.
competing with anyone else on the field but myself, and 16
Mm-hmm.
half marathons, and just like, did it, how's
Wow.
my time? And I think it can be healthy
Mm-hmm.
to be competitive if you're doing that with yourself in a way that
Mm-hmm.
feels good.
Me against me. I
Yeah.
hear sometimes not. It's always nowadays 2023. We try to find really nice ways of saying things quickly because sometimes it's really helpful. So empowering, and touching base with a higher power or an all existent power or the source. If I can
Yes.
summarize a bit of what you're saying, and
Exactly.
how do you? And I really do want to get back to your family because I think again, just going behind the mask of somebody who sees clients and talks to people about this, I want to hear about your family. Before I get there, just one cliffhanger. How do you work with somebody who says, Lisa, not very religious and I'm not very spiritual, and that whole thing makes me feel ooey gooey, and
Yeah.
I just, it doesn't work for me, but I still don't feel happy in my body. I still don't feel great in my life. What angle do you go down with someone who shares such sentiment with you?
Absolutely. I even address that in my book. And I just ask
Okay.
for you to identify, what do you believe then? Like,
Mhm.
is it more something you find peace in nature or in
Mhm.
science, that everybody
Mhm.
believes differently? And I think that makes our world so awesome, the diversity.
Mhm.
So I really want people to dig into, what do you believe? If it's not
Mhm.
something spiritual or so woo woo, because I think we all believe something, we just might not be in touch
Mhm.
with that. So I want to help the
Mm.
person reach for that place and that information within them to source from.
I like that. So you ask people to dig deep, look in the mirror, and say, okay, if spirituality, if God, if you're an atheist, for example, and
Yeah,
super rational, logical, then maybe you believe in other humans creating great things through science or nature or
absolutely.
technology, or maybe believe in just the breadth and wonder of nature itself. So connect to
Mhm.
that when you're looking for solace and
Yes.
love and feeling of, you know, being as part of a team. Okay, cool. Great answer. I think people will take
Thanks.
that a lot. Getting back to your family, I guess so what made them eventually go to therapy? I mean, give us a timeline from, parents divorcing in your teens. Where did each parent go? What was their journey, if you don't mind? And then what did it take for you guys to get to this place where you were a family that could communicate nowadays and hang out as adults and be present in each
Sure.
other's lives? What's the
You know,
journey
Alex,
there?
so it's I'm kind of laughing. So my parents, they never went to therapy, but the siblings,
Mhm. Okay.
myself and my
Osmosis therapy.
yes, myself and my four younger siblings, we have gone to therapy.
Yeah.
So the takeaway for that for me, because I think, these lifelong assignments of the families we come from, and sometimes it's like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, I really picked these people, or like, so there's growth forever, like infinite growth present within our family relationships. And so the most recent lesson that my families
Mhm.
helped me to embody is, you know what, like, it's not my job to get you to therapy. It's not my job
Mm.
to, because sometimes when we achieve, and I imagine for you, this level of happiness and emotional freedom, it's like we just want our loved ones to do it
Yes.
too. And I've
Yes.
been so invested and exhausted myself when they're not ready. They don't want it. And I've
Mhm.
come to the place, you know what, it's okay that they don't want it. Like,
Yeah,
they're
what got you
about
to
other
that place?
things.
Yeah.
I think just at first
How'd you get there?
my own
Okay.
exhaustion at first.
So you
And
you
that,
act you ran the marathon of getting your family. You tried to run a marathon and then you got exhausted. You
yes,
said, "Okay,
exactly, and
I
I
I
realized it's
reached
not
the
my
finish line."
job. Yeah, like,
Okay.
it's not my responsibility or my job to carry everyone to their healing. We all have free
Mhm.
will, we all have
Mhm.
choice, and who
Mhm.
am I, even kind of philosophically, who am I to
Mhm.
think this is the best way for them? Why don't I focus more on the best ways for me? And I became
Mhm.
less depleted, more happy, and just more accepting of my parents as they are, and instead of
Mhm.
wanting them to change and feeling like I cannot be
Mhm.
happy until they
Unless they
have
change.
changed. And
Yeah.
that's bondage. And emotional freedom really comes from, like, you can be who you are, and I can be who I am, and, like, I don't need you to change to be happy. And so that's the
Mm.
place I've come to. And at times it might get tense. It's not like every
Sure.
gathering's blissful. There's
Sure.
usually something kind of strange that happens, but like, my siblings and I laugh about it after, and it's made
Mhm.
us closer. And I'm glad that
Cool.
they saw the value of getting some therapy for themselves. And again, just really allowing people to be on their own paths has been the biggest
Mm.
takeaway for me. And I really love the people that come to me for therapy. They want healing, and not trying to
Mhm.
give it to
Right.
others that don't.
Right. And can I give you some, by the way, I hear this because I've been doing a few of these and in my own life, just being a health nut, and the reason I'm a health nut is because my
Yeah.
mom died from cancer and my
Oh,
this, that, and this.
yeah.
So for a while, I was trying to convince everyone in my family, like, oh, well, you need to be exercising and stop eating that. And by the way, do this, da, da, da. No one wants to hear it. They hate hearing it. No one ever, I mean, I don't want to hear it when people tell me things. And so that part I get, and thank you for your answer.
Yeah.
I expected a bit of that, but it's still good to hear the context on it. Especially funny that you and your siblings went to therapy, your parents didn't.
Yes, yes.
What about edge cases? I mean, I guess like I always see this bell curve of, when kids are kids, they're almost relying on caregiving, as you mentioned. And then when adults become adults, all the way through the point where their health span sort of runs out, they're independent, they can manage their own lives. How about on the other side of that with geriatrics, which is something I think about a lot,
Mm,
having taken care of my grandmother.
mhm.
Um, what boundaries do you set? Have you had to deal with that? Are you comfortable sharing? Because there's a certain point where your parents, not your anyone's parents or anyone's elders, become more dependent on the younger generation.
Yeah.
And then it's a different question, as well as cases of addiction too, where the person can't help themselves. So there's like two cases there. I'd
I
love to
think
hear your feedback on. Yeah.
that's a paradigm kind of emerging in my life and for my siblings.
Okay.
And I fortunately our dad in his mid 80s is so healthy. He's always
Wow.
been healthy as far as in his body, and
Mhm,
so he, there's not I don't feel concerned about needing to care for him. However,
mhm,
my mom, who's just in her mid 70s, has some health issues. She hasn't been as active in her life,
mhm,
and so she's still living independently. But my sisters and I sometime are like, okay, with mom, it might feel a little scary sometimes. So I'm not
mhm,
quite sure
mhm,
yet how that will be navigated. But I've been
mhm.
kind of sending out in my meditations to have that clarity and to have that wisdom, and asking for the best case scenario for her, and
Of
just
course.
kind of open to receive that information at the right time.
No, thank you. And I think again, it sounds like you're letting go of not of agency, but of impetus, like urgency. Like you're not seeking to control her or to control the
No.
outcome. You're kind of setting back and you're saying, things will come, life will come. There's some things I could do about, but not everything. And I need to live in the moment of where I am today.
Yeah.
Would you want to add anything to that?
No, very well said.
Awesome. Yeah, and so we touched on geriatrics. We touched on a bit of addiction, which are edge cases in your childhood, and we touched on green pilling your siblings, so to speak. And
Right. Right.
was there
Yeah.
any did you bring up the therapy banner and say therapy, or how did that go for them? Did they do it after you, before you? What happened there?
So I have two siblings that are from my mom and dad's marriage, Michael and
Okay.
Ashley, and then I have two you would say half sisters, though they feel like
Okay.
my full siblings, Maria and Sheila. And so Maria and Sheila, the two younger siblings, they each took some time to live with me as they were growing up. Like they'd sleep over when things my dad
Hmm.
remarried and had an
Hmm.
arranged marriage to a woman from Pakistan, where he's from. And we
Hmm.
actually picked
Hmm.
Ruby. And I know that's so different from American culture,
Hmm.
being from a blended family, that a lot of my aunts and uncles have had arranged marriages. And so it's a unique experience to have growing up in America. However,
Hmm.
that's the case in my family. And so Maria and Sheila would take some time in their young teenage years to live with me at my house since I'm so much older. And in those
Hmm.
situations, like I don't think I necessarily needed to even preach therapy. I think they just saw
Hmm.
how my home is peaceful and
Hmm.
content. Like there were a lot of things they got from staying with me that they wanted for themselves, and it kind of
Hmm.
led them to therapy on their own,
Mhm,
which has been
mhm.
awesome because I see them with some really good skills being in their early 30s to navigate life and relationships, and like so I feel so proud of them for choosing that.
Yeah, they must be really gratifying, and I think just, it's getting back to this message you're sending, which is living your truth, staying in your lane, shining, being the light in a way, and letting that reflect upon those around you. And
Yeah.
and we talked a lot about the hard work you did to get to this point today, and something to be really proud of. And I think the message you're sending out there is really encouraging for folks who are going through hard times. And maybe just to finish with a few, like, when you do have clients and patients who are going through hard times, how do you encourage them to do the grind work? I mean, what do you do vision boarding? I know you have a lot of different modalities that you bring into your practice, including Reiki and
Yeah.
astrology. How do you get people who are like not okay and
Yeah.
encourage them to being okay, which is some continuum?
Well, and I like your question because for me, it's taken to find my healing and my health. It's taken to look everywhere. I've always been curious. So
Hmm.
I've tried so many things, like it sounds like you have at different times, because something that's a good
Hmm.
go to might not be one day. Like with physical
Mhm.
fitness, you might have an injury and you can't quite
Yep.
do what you were doing. And holy shit, what am I going to do now to soothe
Yep.
myself? And that's sent me down all kinds of rabbit holes. And I do have on my website a class. It's an online class with 20 psycho spiritual tools that if
Mhm.
somebody's interested for like 20 specific things I've used in my life.
That'd be great.
However, there's some kind of like main things, kind of like set core principles that you can just choose to try out or not. But for me, it's been a daily affirmation
Mhm.
practice, affirming
Daily
myself
affirmation.
daily. Yeah, and like really carrying the sticky notes. I have sticky notes in my bathroom cabinet. Like I allow, I trust, I'm receiving, I'm safe, I'm protected, I'm loved. And certain affirmations I've looked at for years because it can take years to change some of the thought patterns and belief
Mhm.
systems that we
Mhm.
gained in our childhoods. And so
Mhm.
affirmation is something I never stop. It's like working
Mhm.
out. Like, and you don't go to the
Mhm.
gym once or twice and maintain those gains 20 years from now.
Mhm.
Like, I've worked out
Exactly.
for 30 years. I've affirmed for 30 years. I see doing both forever. So I think it's like an
Mhm.
everyday practice of affirming yourself and finding affirmations that click for you. To say I'm rich when you don't feel rich is like not
Mhm.
the affirmation to use. And a better example
Mhm.
is like I want to know I can be rich, or I want to
Okay.
feel rich. I want to know that's a possibility for me. So you start
Uh-huh.
with affirmations that are authentic.
It's good on affirmations because I think people get lost and it's like, well, I'm rich. And it's like, well, I don't feel rich. And then it's hard for them to repeat it. Right. So I like how you're
It has to
choosing
be
ones
like
that are
true for
authentic.
you, like really true
True.
for you. You have to feel like this is it. This is me. Like I want to know I can be, even with health. If you're not
Mhm.
healthy, it's hard to say I'm in perfect health. When your
Mhm.
body has ailments. So it's like
Mhm.
I want to know deeper healing. I want to, like what you kind of like bridge the statements to get to where you want to go over time.
Mhm.
And so there's some nuances to that. And in my book, I give some affirmation and practical takeaway steps to be about that path, like 30-day experiments. Another
Nice.
thing
We have to link to
is
that. Yeah.
thank you. Is
Mhm.
saying yes to new things because we get
Okay.
so set in our routine, and that can be a good thing.
Mhm.
Like definitely do your
Mhm.
health, your routine, but also be open to new possibilities and say yes. Like if you're anxious about doing something, but also a little excited, do that. Like when I started my
Mhm.
podcast, All Things Therapy, I was scared
Mhm.
shitless to know can I do this, but I was also just as excited as I was anxious, and that was a yes for me. I'm
Mhm.
just going to try this out,
Mhm.
and you never
Mhm.
have to do it again if it's that awful.
Yeah.
So to really give yourself permission to try new things.
And so 20 of those tools you outline on your site, and I'm going to link to those because I think, people as a coach, a former trainer, I think it's good to give people tools and give them, theory and structure. And I think we've done a great job doing both today. So affirmations are a big one, saying yes. And you got one more for us? One more one
I
that you
do,
like
and
nowadays? I'm sure you got
my
a ton more, but yeah.
yeah, no, but there's a third because I think too many sometimes can be overwhelming. You just need a few
Sure. Agree.
tools to
Agree.
start making a
Agree.
change. And a third big one for me, my book centers upon empathy and self forgiveness as a way to
Okay.
change versus beating up on yourself and being critical and negative and punishing. A good coach is typically, they're going to set boundaries and limits, but they're going to encourage you that you can do
Mm.
this. And I think self
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness, like really scanning your day at the end of your day, at the end of your week, and looking at if you feel like you fell short, instead of
Mm-hmm.
criticizing yourself with some negative words, to be like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what, like I did. I just didn't do as well as I would have liked, and I can forgive myself for that. And life's going to give
Mm-hmm.
you thousands of more opportunities to do it over. So to really try to forgive when you're not showing up, and that helps you be more allowing with others and kind of softens
Mm-hmm.
things in your life.
Mm-hmm. So you're being real, so you're evaluating what really happened. So you're not being
Yeah.
too negative. You're not saying, wow, I really fucked up this week and was lazy, excuse my
Yeah.
language. And
Yeah. Yeah.
there's just saying, and I can do differently next time and I don't need to punish myself for what happened this week. And there's reasons for what happened this week. I think that's a
100%.
nice line that you draw there because people tend, especially nowadays, it's in the extreme social media world, it's easy to fall on one line or the other. Like, should be really hard on yourself or you should be really easy and everything's fun. It's
I
probably
like a
somewhere in
middle
the middle.
road, like a middle road.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
definitely.
sometime I'm like,
Def
"Lisa, what the fuck are you doing?" But it's, like, with, like, a laugh, and then I'm like, "Okay, like,
Yeah.
I'm being bullshitty right now," and just kinda my inner
Mhm.
self-talk, and it's like, you can have
Mhm.
fun with this too, you can use your humor, the
Mhm.
universe is funny, like, it's not all
Mhm.
serious, that you can use your
Mhm.
unique personality and your self-talk to kinda get yourself
Mhm.
to where you wanna go, step by step.
That's nice. I like all 3 of those, the affirmations, the weekly or daily review. Each of those are tools that people can use kind of today, and I think just taking little steps by steps, like, some people are big planners, some people are identified as perfectionists, they feel like they're OCD, and they say, "Well, I gotta get it all right," and then those people know that it's actually not all right, and then the people who just do little steps know that sometimes you have to have a bigger plan, and so I think each tool you presented is actionable,
Thank
and
you.
I like the 30-day plan especially too.
I
So
love
I'm
that,
gonna link to
Alex,
all
I
that.
love yeah,
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 thank you. I think a moderating voice is needed, and we're
yeah,
gonna present this on the podcast, on Instagram, all of that. So where
awesome.
can people find you? I know NOLA Therapy, so NOLA Therapy dot
Yeah,
com
yeah,
with
that's my
mhm,
website, and on
and
Instagram.
Instagram.
Yeah,
Okay,
and on YouTube,
awesome. And
NOLA
YouTube too.
Therapy. Yeah, I put my
Awesome.
podcast on YouTube, and I'd love to have you on my show, Alex, on All Things
Yeah,
Therapy this
thank
year.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would love that. I'd really enjoy that.
And can I share a couple things not to do for people not to do, just if you think of like
Yes.
yeses and nos? Because I think
I
there are a
like
couple
nose.
big ones. Yeah, it's like
Uh-huh.
don't argue for your limitations. And even I find
Mm.
myself doing this almost like say if there's something like come skiing somewhere, and the
Mhm,
first thought
mhm,
I might have is like, oh my gosh, like where's the money for that? And it's like, no, no, no. Like, do you want the experience? So the first playground is like in our minds. Like, do you want that experience?
mhm,
Yes. And then, like, okay, universe, like, or inner self, or however you speak to yourself, like, I want that experience of going skiing. Show me the resources. So instead of limiting yourself based on finite things, be it finances or your schedule, you have kids and you don't see how you could get away, like try to just in your mind align with, do I want this experience? Yes or no? And then start feeling for the path of, well, then how can I allow my experience? And that's different than release arguing for your limitations. And that's in your own head between your two ears.
mhm.
And also
Release
don't hurt,
arguing for your limitations. And then give
yeah,
me another no. Mhm,
and don't
that's a good
hurt
one.
yourself with your words. Like, don't hurt
Mm,
yourself with your words. We can be too, if we're not telling ourselves kind things, how are we going to get receive that from others? Even it's so reciprocal. I've seen so much in my life, the way I'm speaking to myself might be what I pull from others kind of unconsciously, and to really upgrade my speech to myself. Our words are our thoughts and clothing. If you kind of look at that as a physical thing, what kind of
mm.
words am I speaking to myself? It's so important to not hurt yourself with your words.
As clothing, I really like that. How are you going to get
Yeah.
dressed for today? And Steve Harvey has a great thing where he's got the factory workers in your brain. There's 1,000 factories, and there's a foreman. And when you wake up, say, "Oh, I don't feel good. I feel tired. I don't know today's. I have to get to work." So that he goes to the foreman goes, "Hey, the boss says that he's not feeling good. Today's going to be a bad day.
I
Let's
love
get going,
this.
folks." And then all the factory workers start manufacturing negative thoughts and negative clothes, negative self-talk.
Wow.
And so what you're suggesting, Steve Harvey's great, really. Wow.
Yeah.
On his and I guess you might have met him out there in LA at some point or been close to
I
his
haven't
his
yet, but
circles.
yeah.
But he's wow. And so you're saying for a no, don't speak to yourself negatively and also release the limitations that you set for yourself.
Right.
Can you restate that first one? It's
Yeah, is don't argue for your limitations. I
don't
got that
argue
from
for your
Abraham
limitations.
Hicks. Yeah, don't argue
You
for your
did.
limitations. And even along with
Hmm.
the don't hurt yourself with your words, that applies to social media. I work with a lot of people when you're going through or have gone through a breakup, and you're
Okay.
looking to, I've been in this place as well, looking and seeing your ex with their new love, and that
Yes.
feels awful.
Yes.
Like, you don't have to cut yourself. It's like emotional cutting by
Mm.
exposing yourself to some of these images. And it's okay to hide or mute versus
Yes.
blocking, which is so
Yes.
extreme, unless there's like
Yes.
abuse and trauma, to just, you don't have to look at that for a while you're healing yourself and reconfiguring what your life needs to look like now after this person and you have separated, to really give yourself that chance.
So affirm daily and don't argue for your limitations. Be positive with the words you're saying to yourself, and if you notice that they aren't positive, you can reframe.
And at
Um,
least go
so
neutral. Like, if you can't
yeah, at
be
least go
positive in
neutral.
a day, just go
Yeah,
neutral. Like, you don't have to be in a peak experience of joy every day. I don't
right.
know that that's sustainable. However, I think you can feel satisfaction. You can feel even just some calm. You can feel like a more mid range emotion to stay on your path where you want to get to.
And so, yeah, you've got those two no's, and then, oh, you want to give us one more no to send us out of here?
I've thought of something, but I don't know that it's quite phrased. Maybe you can help me with this. Like, don't
Sure.
limit what you want to experience. And I feel like there's a more affirmative
Hmm.
way to say that. Like, really allow yourself to be honest with what you'd like to experience in this lifetime. And even if you can't do it today, know that it could possibly come to you. Like, a way to just really be unlimited in your thought realm and in your emotional realm and with your desires.
I think the unlimited, yeah, don't preclude and don't say, well, oh, I have these three situations. I have a kid, or my work isn't allowing, or I'll never have time to. Just say, yeah, this could happen one day, and let's
Yes.
work backwards, or let's make a
Yeah.
path. Like you
I
said,
like that.
let's
Thank you
align
for
the
that.
path.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good one. I think we have so much opportunity, especially in this country, but elsewhere, and those listening, we can make a lot of things happen. And if people look back in their past, they have made a lot of things happen for
Yeah.
themselves, and so have you, and so
Absolutely.
have I. Things
Yes.
that on paper that day, if you, I've done things where I ask people around me like, "Hey, should I start this business?" No, bad idea. You're going to suffer. You're going to lose money. You look back 5 years later, none of the things predicted happened. So,
Right.
if you're in a situation where you can imagine something, it probably can happen.
Absolutely. Yes.
Mhm. Lisa Tahir, thank you. NOLA Therapy. I would love to join your show this year.
Yes. Let's
This is
do it.
really, really great conversation for me, and I think folks will love it. We're going to wish you a good rest of the day, and we'll talk soon. We'll have to do another one
Thank you,
as well.
Alex.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you.
I appreciate you
Take
too.
care.